haven't done one of these in a while where I talk about some kind of creepy stuff that happened as a child or happened to my family, which there was quite a bit of little things that either happened to me or happened to my family, things that happened to, like, I guess you call them like great-grand relatives and so forth and so on. But this particular story tonight is not too long, but it is kind of crazy, and you probably, you tell from the title, it was about the time I was almost abducted when I was a kid. And this kind of ties into another story, which I'll probably tell another time. I really wanted to wait on some of these until maybe I had a few more subscribers, but I think most of my subscribers are here for the music content than they are the storytelling and the rambling. But that's just one of the colors you get when you come to my channel. So this is basically where I lived at when I was a kid. And when I say a kid, I mean, I think when this actually happened, I was around 9 years old. We had some family problems. My mother and father were not too long divorced, and my mom was living with her boyfriend at the time, and he just did not like me at all. And so he basically gave an ultimatum to my mom. It was like, it's me or it's your son. And me being a 80s kid growing up in the 90s, my mom said, okay, I choose you. She chose her boyfriend, and so I went to live with my grandparents. And actually at the time, I believe my sister was staying with us too. She was living with us too. And we were in the middle of there was a shooting that had happened that my family was all involved in. And sadly, 2 police officers lost their lives and all this stuff. So my family was in turmoil at the time. And this was after all that, a good few years after that. But the repercussions of something like that, just waves, just go throughout the years, And so my grandfather was, at that time, he was really big into religion. He was trying to make amends for, I guess, things that he considered that he had done wrong in the past. And just a lot of stuff was weighing on him. So we would go to church a lot of times. And a lot of times, I say a lot of times, we would go to church like twice a week. It was on like Wednesdays and Sundays, I think is what days it was, or Tuesdays and Sundays. But anyway, when this first kind of got weird, we were going to this little country church that was up not too far from where we lived. We lived on a mountain. And when I say we lived out in the middle of nowhere, like we lived in the middle of nowhere, not like boondocks like some people would think, like Ozarks type stuff, but I mean, there was community, but we were in the sticks. And so, like, we didn't even get cable television and stuff like that out where we lived at. I don't even think that people were getting electricity to this hilltop where we lived until like a couple of our families, had houses either built there or moved trailers up there. And so anyway, the community had just kind of started getting bigger at that time in that area. And there were a few families that would go to this little mountain church around the way. Now, the kids, a lot of times in this church where we went to church at, we would go outside and we would play sometimes when the sermons were going on, especially some of the boys that were getting up there 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old range. Well, I mean, because we would get rambunctious in the church. And so there was this old house that sat across from the church that we would go over and play at in this house. And not in the house, around the house. We weren't allowed in the house. But me being a boy and, the other fellows that we were out there with, we slipped into this house a few times. Well, at one point, one of the boys we were out there with, he noticed that there was this blue truck. Now, I want to say it was like a Ford truck. Thinking back on the adults talking about it, me as a child at the time, I don't think I would have paid attention to that, but I know it was like a blue truck. And one of the boys, because he knew we weren't supposed to be in this place. I knew we weren't supposed to be in this place. But we kept noticing this truck that had came by a couple times. Now, I wasn't the most observant kid, but, apparently this boy was. And he was like, we were just, playing, being loud and all this stuff. And all of a sudden he was like, shh, he was like, man, I don't know. I think that these people are here that own the house or whatever, because they keep coming by. And so anyway, we were kind of like watching out this little window, it was a window, or I'm thinking way back. So like, I just remember us peeping out, and this truck, man, it like slowed way down, and these guys were in it, these two men, and I want to say, thinking back now, they looked almost like Iranian or something, which is weird because this is going to come into another bit of this later on when I mention some other stuff. This may be a little bit of a long one. But basically, they were slowing way down, man, and they were checking the front of this house out, and there was like a curve that kind of went around the back side of this house, and you could still see from the road, man, and I mean, they were cruising slow going down by there, and we could see them until they got up out of sight around the house. And so we laid low for a minute till we were pretty sure they were gone. And anyway, when they were gone, we went on back to playing, if I remember correctly. And I'd be damned, man, like these people, like the guys come back through. And so at this point, we're certain that we're in trouble, and that these people are going to tell on us for being in this house that we're not supposed to be in. But they never stopped. But they were like watching us, and they were cruising by like really slow. And anyway, so I knew, especially me, I knew that I was going to be in trouble. And the way my grandfather was, I was better off to just head that off right up front. So I just went to him after these guys come back by again. I think they may have came back by again. So it was like 3 times before finally they scared us out of there. And we were like, man, we're done for. Like, we're in trouble. They know we've been in this house. These are probably the owners, blah, blah, blah. So church service is over that night. And I tell my grandfather, I'm like, we were in this house. Ratted us all out. I told on us all. And of course he's mad and he's furious and all this stuff. And so anyway, apparently he goes and talks to the preacher about this stuff, because they were trying to figure out a way that the kids that didn't want to be in there, they either needed to get some kind of a study together for the kids so the kids would have something to do, or a way that they knew that the kids would be out playing but wouldn't go to this house, because this house was apparently due to be tore down at some point, because it was a condemned house. And so anyway, as he's talking to the preacher and he's telling about the owners coming by and catching us in there, that's when the preacher tells him that the owners apparently is like some old couple that were like bus drivers around there or something. And if I remember right, it may have been the bus driver of our area at the place. So it most definitely was not these guys who were coming by. And he knew them very well. And he, as a matter of fact, several of the people that were kin to the preacher helped take care of this house, mowing it or whatever around. I guess because when they tore it down, maybe they were going to sell the lot. I don't know. But they took care of it. And there was a little graveyard around, not too far from there, too, if I remember correctly. So anyway, that's where the preacher basically is, he tells them, he's like, that's not them. We don't know who these people are in this blue truck that they're talking about. So immediately, like, a red flag goes up with the parents and stuff, and so everybody stops the kids from being able to go out and play when we're going to church and everything. And so that was that for a little while. And they were, skeptical of who these people were, and they kept their eyes out, trying to see them, but they never saw them again, not there anyway. And so fast forward a few weeks, and one day our neighbors were there was a good friend of my grandfather's. It was this guy named Lester, and he passed away a long time ago, so he's not around anymore. Neither my grandfather, for that matter. A lot of these people in these stories, they're not around anymore. But anyway, so basically they're talking one day out in my grandfather's garage. He used to work on everybody's lawnmowers and stuff that would come around in the neighborhood and stuff, and people would just hang out there and talk. And he starts talking about this blue truck that's creeping around, and they don't trust it. They just get a weird vibe from these guys that are in it. And immediately my grandfather is like, shoots back and thinks to what happened at the church. And so they start talking about this stuff. So they make it a point to warn all the people around there and stuff to keep their eyes out and watch for this blue truck and tell their kids and whatnot. And of course I have the talk with, where my grandfather's telling me, you really got to watch people and be careful of people. There are people that'll snatch up kids, and this is true, man. Like, there are people that'll snatch up kids and you'll not know, and they'll be gone and you'll never see them again. And God knows what life they'll have after that, whether there's a purpose for them snatching them, like, some kind of business things, there's human trafficking, or if it's just somebody looking to murder a child or rape a child or whatever. It's horrible world. And me as a kid hearing that talk, I kind of took it to heart a little bit. I was scared of not seeing my family, because they kind of drove that home, like, you'll never see your granny, you'll never see your grandfather again, you'll never see your mom, you'll never see your dad again if somebody grabs you. And he's like, a grown man grabs you, you're not going to be able to get away. And so time goes by, and I guess this truck is seen a few other places around, so I guess people are aware of it at that time. And we don't have in that place, you would think the police or something would be more involved or something, but where we lived at, there was like city police, but they were a good ways away, so they would have to travel way out to come to the area where we even lived at. And they would come, but there was not a big police presence, so a lot of those people lived up there. It was up to them to police the areas themselves a lot of times. And so anyway, one evening, a few weeks later, a few days later, I don't know, it's a long time ago, so it's hard to place a time on that, but I know it was a little stretch there, a little period. And I used to have this spot up towards the end of our driveway, and I got a video of this stuff. I'm going to try to splice some of this in here. So there, basically, there was a spot up towards the end of the driveway where I would sit a lot of times and play, and there was a hillside there, like where there was like some dirt and stuff like that, and we would, some of the neighborhood kids and stuff, man, we get up there with our little toy trucks and all this stuff, man, and we just have a good old time up there. And there was a little pine thicket too that was on the side of our driveway, and I would go up to the end of this driveway. A lot of times when we would get ready for church and stuff, I would get ready first. They would have me ready first before they would finish up getting ready, and my grandfather would go around locking things up and whatnot and so forth and so on, and I would go up and play around at the mailbox and stuff and hang out till they were ready, and we would leave. And I remember this day we were getting ready for church, and I was up there, and there was no one around. My grandfather we had kind of a long driveway, and my grandfather was down in his garage at the end of that driveway. And I'm up there, I'm by myself, I'm sitting down and I'm playing, and this truck comes up the road, man, like from nowhere, and it was on me. They pull it up to a point where they almost blocked my route to get back to our driveway. Like I would have had to went out around the truck, and if I'd have done that, then I most likely would have been caught by them. But they made a mistake. They kind of left me an opening there, and so basically they pulled it up, and these two dudes, man, they hopped out, and they were coming at me. They were, both of them. And I jumped up, man, because I had already had this stuff burning my head. And it was just like primal fear. And I see them coming at me. It was the same two dudes, no mistake about it. It was the same two freaking guys, man. They were kind of foreign looking. Like, I heard them say back then that other people had seen them. That's why I think of like the Iranian kind of look kind of thing. And again, that's going to come into this later. I'll tell you another little story before I get done with this. But anyway, they come at me, man, and I juked them like I could run, man. When I was a kid, I could get going on you. And I ducked one way, man, and I ducked the other. And when I did, man, I mean, I'm screaming bloody murder, help, you know. And then they're laughing, man, but they were coming at me. What they did, they just laughed, like, and they were coming at me. Now, whether or not they meant to scare me, you know, I don't know, but it looked like they were coming to grab me. And it seems awful odd that we'd seen them all these other times, and then this happens. So like I say, I juked him, and I managed to get right between the one as he snatched for me, and get between the truck and the mailbox, and get headed down our driveway, man. And I guess my grandfather, man, he heard me squalling. And these dudes, lucky probably that he didn't make it up the driveway quicker than he did, man. He was young. My grandpa was young for a grandpa. And he was an Army vet. And he always carried a pistol with him. Been a couple dead dudes probably if he'd have made it up the driveway in enough time. But he sees me coming down the driveway, man. I'm squalling. I'm scared, you know. And I hear this truck squeal, man, tire squeal, and then they take off, man. And they go down this like country back roadway that you went out around this place called Frames Branch. I think I mentioned it in one of our other videos. Is you could go out this mountain way, and it would branch off in different directions, and you could go all different ways back out through the middle of nowhere in that town, in the wilderness back out that way. I say town, I mean the freaking wilderness back that way. If you went the right direction, you'd be gone and nobody could catch you. And city cops, man, it would take them a minute to respond. And my grandfather, we didn't have a phone at that time. So this is another crazy thing. So we didn't even have a phone. We didn't have a means to call the cops even. Back then, we didn't have a TV. We didn't have a phone. We listened to the radio one night a freaking week. We went so far back into, like, trying to live like ancient Christians that it was just crazy, man. But, so anyway, you know, they checked me out, man, and, you know, and everything, and they're like, are you all right? And he was like, you did good, you got away from them and all this stuff. And they asked me about everything that happened, and I explained everything. This is where it gets fucking really creepy, man. they get me settled down and we talk and all this stuff. So we get ready to go on to church, and we had like the fenced in yard. You'll see it in the video that I got, the same fenced in yard that we had then. It's in this video. It's been there all these years. And so I ended up, they said I wanted to go back out to the front on the porch and look out and just see, just look around. And they were like, that's fine, but don't go up the driveway, stay down here in the fenced in area. And I was like, okay, and no problem there. I was terrified as a kid, and they were literally fixing to come out right pretty much behind me. I think for whatever reason, I think my grandpa might have had to go down and put the chickens up or something right before we left. And so I walk out to the front, and I'm standing out there, man, and I'm kind of messing around, and I'm looking around, and like I said, there's this pine thicket that's on the other side of our fence, and I look and I catch a glimpse of something, and I'm not exactly certain, so I'm like really just really trying to see like what am I seeing, because it's kind of dusky dark out too, starting to get dark. And all of a sudden I realize what I'm looking at. It's a silhouette. It's a man. There's a man in a white shirt, and he's standing in the pine thicket, not 15, 20 feet away from me. Not only is he standing there, just standing there completely still staring at me, he's got this big, crazy freaking smile on his face. And he's just like standing there, like just in the edge of these pines, man, and I see this, and I freak, man, and back to the house I go. And of course he couldn't have got me. He would have had to have hopped 2 fences and got through those pines and got over there where I was. And this guy was not the same as the other 2 dudes. However, we're pretty sure that this guy was with those guys, because a couple of the other people that had talked about seeing these guys had mentioned sometimes they had a 3rd guy with them, and that he was kind of a heavy-set guy. And so this guy was the one that I saw. And so I ran back in the house, and of course my grandfather at this time, he grabs his pistol and he goes back out to the front, and that point, dude's gone. And it's kind of my fault on how easy it was for this dude to get out of this little pine thicket, because I actually used to go over in this pine thicket, and I would take these little wood snips, and I would cut out little paths all through the pine thicket and stuff, and go out in there and play. So there was all these paths all through this pine thicket where a grown man could easily navigate through and get in and out of there. And you could go all kinds of little paths I made, and it'd take you right back up to the road, back up out of sight and everything. So I'm certain that, as an adult looking back on that that's what that guy did. And I remember my grandfather kind of got mad at me about making those paths, and he was like, see, we don't want to make it to where thieves and stuff can come down and have an easy escape route, with the stuff, or you, or whatever, And so at that point, it was enough, and they did go up and call the police and everything. And if I remember right, we didn't even go to church that night. They had the police actually come down and talk and interviewed me and all this stuff, And that was that, man. They never caught those guys. We never saw them again. Really odd thing that happened. But brought up the thing about the Iranian thing and about bringing that back up is because, there are human traffickers and stuff that will grab kids and sell them and stuff. And, it's hard to, it's hard to think, for a normal person that something like that could happen, but it does. And I'll give you an example of a story that you should look up if you're seeing this and you really want to see something crazy about something like this going bad and wrong. There was, around the same time period, early 90s, there were a lot of kids going missing, and there was this group I probably shouldn't even mention them on here because I think that they're still very much active. Very dangerous group. And they're called NAMBLA, and it stands for North American Boy Love Association. And I found out about them recently watching a documentary on a kid who was kidnapped in the 90s. His name was Johnny Gosh. I think he was kidnapped in the 90s. Either the 90s or late 80s. Regardless, it's not the only situation of something like that happen. I mean, you got several strange instances, but this is one that people that are against conspiracy theories and stuff have a hard time debunking on this one. You know, Johnny Gosh was this boy who was working on a paper route, and he basically was drugged and threw in the back of a van, and people took off with him. And they mentioned this dirty, kind of beat up van, but the people driving it were like these really well dressed, well, more well dressed than what you would expect from driving that type of van, Iranian looking guys. And these guys were fairly well taken care of. They didn't look like scrubby people. It wasn't dirty or nothing like that. The truck was. But anyway, you know, NAMBLA, when the mother of this boy, when he went missing, when they started looking into this stuff, like the local police were trying to help them until all of a sudden the name of that group came in, because there's a lot of like well-known judges and politicians and stuff like that was connected to this group. And she ended up making a friend with a person in the FBI, and they actually showed her documents and stuff where the FBI had intercepted magazines and stuff that were being traded amongst the members, where they were auctioning off pictures of children who weren't even abducted yet, for these groups to go out and abduct them. And a lot of times they would end up working brothels, or they could be, you know, God knows what happens to these kids. They never knew what happened to Johnny Gosh. There's a lot of theories. Some people still believe he's alive today. And that at one point he may have even came to visit his mom as an adult, but he was with like a handler, so who knows what kind of life this dude got into. And then there were people who claimed to have seen him because they described his birthmark and stuff like that. These were other people who had been abducted and had gotten out or escaped, and talked about there being these brothels and stuff for like ultra rich people and stuff in other in you know, other parts of the country. And you know, and sometimes, you know, these kids can be snatched up, and they'll get them out of the country, man. And you know, they'll end up in another country being auctioned off somewhere, and then there's never any hope of them getting home. So I just thank God, you know, that what happened to me, you know, some higher power was looking out for me, I think, whether you believe in God or not. I do. I believe in a God. And I believe that several times in my life he or she, or, you know, whatever it is, was looking out for me. Especially during that time. There's been some weird stuff, you know, weird memories that I have and stuff. You know, there's other stories coming on this channel, man. I gotta wrap this up. I don't want to make it much longer, but trust me when I say, if you see one of these on here, maybe stop and take a second and check it out, and listen to my story, because you never know what I'm going to be talking about on here. You know, I got some wild ones coming. There, you know, the town where I lived at, man, we were off the beaten path, as they say, but there was some weird shit that went on in this town. There was a satanic cult that used to operate there, like certain times out of a year. A lot of people knew about them. Very rich people. Oh yeah, I'm gonna talk about that stuff. So maybe I shouldn't, but I'm going to. Anyway, that's all I got on this one. Crazy story, I know. Got some more stuff coming later on. I'm not going to do these all the time because I don't want to burn through all of them. I don't make shit up, so once I've told them all, I've told them all. I guess when I get to that point, maybe I'll start talking about other people's experiences that I think sound weird or whatever. But anyway, hey, if you like this video, please help me, with growing this channel. I appreciate it so much. The people that I have got, I mean, my heart skipped a beat when I went just from like 14 subscribers up to 21 the other day. That was awesome. It made me feel great, and I don't care that it's like a small little number. I mean, 21 people in a little room, man, that's quite a few people for me to be talking to. So it touches my heart, man. It means a lot to me that you people would take a second and check out any of my videos, especially listen to me ramble on about this crazy shit. So if you could drop a like for me, and if you're seeing this and you're not subscribed yet, help me out, man. Click the subscribe button. I'll do my best I can to keep you entertained. I'm going to keep trying to make these videos better. I want to do this, I want to make a hobby out of this, It's not that I'm trying to make some big thing or whatever, but I would like to check it out, I see people do this, and I think, I've got some stories and stuff too, so why not? Anyway, man, thank y'all. I mean, for real, thank y'all. Peace.